It Happened on the Job, the podcast for relatable conversations with contractors. Sponsored by Goodman Insurance.
Welcome to It Happened on the Job. We are your podcast for relatable and relevant conversations with contractors. Hopefully a little bit of entertainment for you as well. My name is Mike. That's Brian.
How is it going?
Today is episode 59.
59.
Our guest today is Neil Lockhart, CEO of AmeriConstruct. How you doing, Neil?
Hey, Neil.
Doing great. Hi, Mike. Hi, Brian. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Great,
awesome.
man.
Great to have you on today.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to join us here. Little bit different setup today. We've got Neil's with a recruiting firm for construction agencies, not necessarily a contractor, but somebody in that space. So if you could kind of give us a little bit of your background, what led you to the construction industry and how you got started with AmeriConstruct.
Sure. Well, guys, thanks for having me, first of all. Well, my background is recruiting, and I started in high tech during the .com time, so early 2000s. Always had an appreciation, though, for construction. I had an architecture major in college, but I dropped out, which is another story. But I didn't make it, but I always,
Welcome to the club.
I always
Thank you.
Yeah, I know it's tough. It's not as easy as you might think. So I switched over to English and history because I wanted to graduate. So, but always kept the appreciation for building, for architecture, for construction that never left me. And then, through the years, did a lot of, working with tech companies and servicing their needs in terms of software engineers, programmers, and the like. And then just wanted to change. So, I started thinking about what I really wanted to do. And when you think about, what your skills are, I wanted to stay within, my field of recruiting, but take on another industry. So a logical move for me was construction. And so I started this company, AmeriConstruct, 3 years ago now, October, coming up on 3. Wow, it's been almost 3 years already. October 2017, with the premise of servicing not just as a recruiter, but as a consultant as well. So consulting to general contractors, developers, and so forth, and providing best practices within hiring, and also recruiting as well. So recruiting is foremost what we do, but we also provide best practices, how to hire, how to put the process together, how to best serve your employees from a hiring standpoint. We do that as well. So, and we also do outplacement too. So things are going well. A few changes, as you might expect with COVID. We're adjusting a little bit with that, but things are fine. Things are going well.
Awesome. So are your clients, I know you're out of the Bay Area, you mentioned, are your clients just in California, or are you all across the country?
No, we started in the Bay Area, San Francisco. I live in the East Bay. We had an office in San Francisco, and then we expanded to Houston, Texas.
Oh, wow.
Which is a very good market for us as well. Yeah. And, that was a secondary market. Now it's almost on par with what we do in the Bay Area as well. Building is pretty intense and pretty rapid over there. It's a lot easier in many respects to get the process moving from A to Z. So we like it. And things are going well over there in Houston. So San Francisco, Houston, we're now looking at Miami, the Miami to Florida area, and some other areas as well. So we're expanding.
Very cool. So from a hiring standpoint, what kind of positions are most of your clients looking to fill? I can't imagine you're doing much work with the labor aspect, right? I mean, I feel like, or the field labor rather, it's probably more, in the project management and the office side. Is that?
Yeah, exactly, Mike. And we like to say the professional jobs, not discounting the other jobs, which are important as well, the laborers and so forth, but we don't do that. We feel that, the best use of us as an agency, is to hire us for the professional positions. So superintendents, project managers, project engineers, safety managers, estimators, schedulers. Those are the main positions that we fill, and usually at the mid-level to senior level. So, interns and junior candidates, we will not recruit those. Usually the company's not looking for those. They can find those on their own typically.
Right.
But when you get into, the superintendents and project managers are two of the toughest fill. And I might add the toughest to fill, and always has been, are estimators. So
really?
if you guys know any good estimators, let me know.
Huh.
Yeah.
I
really
feel
are.
like that would probably be because there's plenty of ways to mess up as an estimator. Is that correct? Like you need somebody that's very astute in terms of pricing and aware of not underestimating, so that they're creating change orders later down the process. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. It's just more of a technical position. I think you might say that, and it just requires a little more, I hate to say education, but technical skills and formal training. Whereas some of the other jobs, you can learn on the job and kind of come up through the ranks to be a superintendent, to be a project manager, but not so much with an estimator. You need the technical knowledge and good math skills too. So
see, as a guy with a math background like me, and I might say some. I don't know that I'd go as far as addiction, but a very, very high affiliate. What I want to say, love for gambling.
Okay,
I feel like estimating would probably be right where I want to get in there, because I feel like that's almost a form of gambling, right? Like you want to put out a number that you think you're going to win, but also you got to make money, so it's almost kind of like rolling the dice every once in a while.
It's definitely a tight line to walk. Yeah.
Well, yes and no. I say yes because you are estimating, and so when you're estimating, you don't know exactly what it's going to be. It's an estimate, right? And so you get an estimate on the job. A job, it could come out higher, it could come out lower. So you need to be astute about that. But you are, I'd say, rolling the dice. You're using best knowledge, best practices, I think, and bringing all that into it. And with this, compared to gambling, right? If you lose, you lose your money. But if you lose here, the consequences could be a little more severe. So
there's a few more people involved when you lose on the
estimate. You got to estimate. Yeah, the building may not be. May not be. Yeah, exactly.
Not a standalone game there. So
exactly.
Are you guys? I would imagine you probably get it from both sides, but from a workflow standpoint, are you getting more construction companies coming to you looking for people, or do you have more construction professionals saying, "Hey, can you help me find a job?"
Yeah, it's a good question, and that really is dictated by the market, Mike, in terms of what the market is doing. And so now, we're just hitting that period where there's becoming more candidates available. There've been some layoffs due to COVID-19, and so you do have more candidates available. So it isn't a candidate market, and it isn't a client market. Meaning that it's driven by lack of candidates or the reverse.
Right.
So, but there are more candidates available now. And that makes our job even more, I think, important, because, it's important when there's scarcity of candidates, and it's very important also when there's an abundance of candidates, because you really are sifting through, a larger pile, larger screen. The screening that you need to do is just more intense and more involved, because now you have a lot of candidates that have lost their jobs, they're looking for new jobs, but may not be qualified, but really just looking for a fit, they're looking to land somewhere. And so, you just need to be careful that they have the right skills as you talk to them, for the new opportunity. So it really depends on the market. So it was really a client-driven market before, scarcity of candidates, because everybody was, up until about March, it was really a client-driven market. Yeah. And we had, some challenges finding some of the positions, candidates for some of the positions we wanted to fill. So, yeah, but it's changed a little bit now, and it's in flux, and there's but certainly some uncertainty in terms of where we're going in construction. We could talk about that as well, and but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so if you could, that was kind of a natural progression. That was kind of where we were leading as well. Can you kind of get into what you're seeing right now as far as the marketplace from a labor standpoint, and kind of what it looks like going forward?
I think now there is certainly a lot of activity, and sometimes you watch the news or talk to people and they say, oh, everything's shut down, it's all closed, there's all this uncertainty, nothing's going on. Nothing could be really further from the truth. There's a lot going on.
Especially in construction.
Yeah. Look outside your window. Right. There's probably a crane. See that crane to your left, Mike?
That's it. No, unfortunately, there are no windows. We are in a windowless room right now.
It's like a dungeon.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, you know what I mean. There's everywhere.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot going on. But at the same time, GCs, general contractors, and developers, being cautious. They are. I mean, and the caution, I think, comes in not so much with the jobs that they're on now, but looking, 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, a year down the road.
Yeah, the uncertainty in the future.
Yeah, and so are you going to bid on this job? Are you going to try to secure this project, right? You may have a little hesitancy right now and pull back a little bit because you don't really know how that's going to work. Will you have the funds to do it? So I think that is more what's strapping the industry a little bit more than anything else, is more of a mindset in some areas. And so I would say we like to say the mental game. And so there's a lot of second guessing and things like that. But the need, especially when it comes to multifamily housing, and that's the crane outside your window that I was talking about. That's probably a multifamily project going on right now. There's a lot of those. So the industry, I think, is healthy. And we were seeing, if you guys remember when they were talking about, what's essential at this time, essential work.
Right.
We were seen as an essential industry in construction, and it's played out that way and continues to play out that way. So, but we're sifting through. We have a lot of fills, what we call fills, which means open requisitions or open positions to fill. But there have been some pullback, some uncertainty, and some changes as well. So you need to be nimble and flexible, because the need today may not be the need tomorrow as companies adjust and reassess, what their priorities are. So that's kind of what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like there might be some of that uncertainty in the future, and I'm sure your experience is probably leading to, an unwillingness to hire, and because I mean that's a pretty big cost, right? To bring somebody on and onboard somebody and train them and do everything. Are you seeing some of that result where maybe somebody had a position that they were looking to fill, end of last year, January, February, and then all of a sudden they said, yeah, you know what, hold off a little bit. Is that, or are they still kind of moving forward?
You'll see some of that, but I think that if the position is critical, and we really only work on, the critical stuff,
right.
That's where we're really good. The hard to fill position has been open for a while, perhaps, and other recruiters have been involved with that position, haven't really turned up any good candidates for the company. We're able to do that quickly. We say in less than 30 days, and we usually do it in less than 30 days. So that really hasn't changed. I think the need is the need. And if you have a project, you're going to need someone to help you fill that if you're not doing it internally yourself. A lot of times you won't be able to do that because you don't have the expertise in terms of having the candidate pool and finding, the right candidate for that job. So the need remains. Yeah, it really hasn't changed. I think that companies decide how they're going to engage a third party like us, I think maybe some of that has changed.
Right.
In terms of, do they know who you are? Can you bring the value? Do you have the track record of doing this? Will this be money well spent? I mean, that is more the issue, I think, now than, we don't have the need. Right. You have the need or you don't have the need. And if you have the need, you just have to find the right vehicle to fill it. And so the conversation now becomes, I think, a lot more about, who's right, who should we employ to do this? Who should we engage with? Can we do this potentially by ourselves? That's the sort of conversation that's going on, I think, more than anything else right now.
Yeah. And so on that, you see more companies looking to hire, for a specific job, or is it more to fill a position, for longevity? Because I mean, my history is I have an uncle who's a general superintendent out in Florida, actually out in that Miami area, who, I mean, he's the head dude on big giant hospital projects and big giant hotel projects.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's number one, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know that he got recruited at one point to do a single job out in LA, right? So I don't know, is that kind of what you guys are doing there, or you see more just, hey, we need an estimator or we need a project manager for, for longevity?
Well, it's huge. It's a combination, Mike, and so you do have the specific projects that are in need, and the superintendent. That's a good example to talk about. It's probably the most needed position in construction. We get more requests for superintendents than any other position, and then it's project managers. But superintendent, leads the project, is the main person, in the field, in the office, responsible for everything that the project is going to be all about. Full life cycle of the project. So,
right.
So those guys come at a premium for the larger projects that we work on. The hotels, the hospitals, casinos. Things of those nature, those types of roles, those types of projects. Then the superintendents are at a premium. We look for the best. But then there are the more of the maintenance type roles as
right.
well, which is just like a company who has ongoing projects always is going to need a good superintendent. Maybe they'll have one long term, but then they'll bring in an assistant superintendent to work under and groom that person and bring them in as a superintendent. Those needs also continue as well.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think it's a combination
of
a little bit of both. Yeah.
Yep.
Certainly a little bit of both. But now we're seeing a lot of the larger projects are the ones that are really getting the play now, because they have the funding to do it, like the stadium projects, like the Raiders Stadium, for example. And then some of the other stadiums, there's a lot of soccer stadiums being built now as well. So larger facilities, which we do very well, because we have the network and background to service those. You'll see a lot of those as well, a lot more than you might see other types of construction, multifamily, which is big too. And I should add also hospitals, medical buildings.
Pretty big right now, I'm sure.
Especially now,
pretty big right now. Yeah, huge right now. Anyone who has OSHPD experience, particularly, we want to talk to them.
That's, I like I said, I talk to my uncle pretty often, and some of the things that he has to manage and deal with just are so far beyond, the normal scope of work in a general commercial setting. When you're talking about the systems in place in a hotel or in a hospital, rather, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, and we thought that hotels, which comes under the hospitality segment, would, because we all know what's going on with bars and restaurants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Closing down, losing staff, and going out of business. We thought that would actually slow down and would be less of a priority than the hospital. But it's almost on par if you look at the numbers. They show that the casinos, the hotels, the restaurants are still being built.
Yeah.
So there's hope somewhere, Mike. there's hope. So someone out there,
somebody knows more than we do, right?
Knows a little more than we do. Has hope for the industry, and for the hospitality industry. They're seeing something that we may not be seeing, and hey, that's all good for us. So we like it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too if they're getting ready to, while they're shut down, they're putting in their improvements or creating new locations while they can, because it's more difficult, of course, when you have customers and traffic come through. So I could see that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for example, San Francisco, there's a number of new restaurants that are being built that are under construction. Or they're doing tenant improvements. As well. And so hopefully this will end soon.
Yep.
And we'll all be back to normal. And then you'll see. Okay, the foresight was there to do this. You can't build you can't build immediately. There's always planning, obviously.
Yeah.
So they're doing that. And I think that's really good.
Right.
That they got involved and started doing that. Yeah, it's awesome to see. It makes us feel good every day.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned you guys are in the Bay Area and in Houston. Do those locations kind of service the rest of California and the rest of Texas, or are you just specific to those two regions? And if you are specific, is there a reason why it's hard? Is it more difficult to kind of go through the rest of the state, or how? what is the reasoning for being specific in just those regions?
Yeah, good question. So we're specific in those regions as far as the clients are concerned. That's where the clients are, and clients are based.
Right.
But candidates can come from anywhere, right? They can come from, East Coast to West Coast, northern states to southern states. It doesn't matter if they're willing to move and can move and are mobile. And, we'll put together a relocation package for them to be able to do that. But I live in the Bay Area, grew up in the Bay Area, so I know it very well. Houston came to us from a good friend of mine, that I met in San Francisco, started talking about, what I wanted to do in the construction company and build this out. And he recommended Houston. I really didn't know much about the Houston market. I've been to Texas a few times, not many, but I've been to Houston, I think, once before. Between October 2017 and now, I've been to Houston about 23 times.
Oh, wow.
So different trips, yeah. So it's a great market, and what we like about it is the ease with which building is represented, meaning that there's no zoning in Houston. I don't know if you guys know that.
Really?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's no zoning, which makes for a very interesting city, guys, because you can
everywhere.
have
You got industrial in the middle of a residential.
Listen to this. You can have a strip club next to a preschool, next to a church, next to a grocery store.
That's awesome.
So I remember going there, maybe my third trip, and I was talking to one of the guys, and they said, "Well, how do you guys have a strip club next to a preschool, next to it? Like, how does this actually work?" And you know what his answer was?
What's that?
He said, well, brother, they're not open at the same time.
There you go.
So there you go, right? So and I was like, well, you got a point. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way.
That's funny.
So yeah, they're not open at the same time. So the philosophy is a little more, professional than that, I would say, in the sense that, they have the rules and, when they can open and when they can't, and what's allowed and what isn't allowed. But the point is that with the no zoning,
a little easier
it just makes it easier. It's really about acquiring the land. If you can acquire the land and show justification what you want to build on that land, you're able to do it. And so the restrictions, the permitting is a lot easier, a lot more simple, a lot less complex than it is. It's very difficult to build in San Francisco and the Bay Area, as you guys know. Mm-hmm. There's a restriction for everything.
Yeah.
And so usually you got to knock something down to build something else because there's no land left. Knock something down, the height of the building, the color of the building, history, you have to pay attention to all of that. Mm-hmm. And then there's also, city council, going through city council and all the regulations that they require. And then it's always out to the public as well for public consumption in terms of feedback, right? Is this going to work for the community? So you have a heavy community side to development in San Francisco and in the Bay Area. Not so much. It's driven by land, mostly availability, and the dollars, being able to pay for what you want to buy.
Yep.
And then build it. So different philosophy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I lived in Texas for 6 years, so I know that way of life pretty well.
Yeah. But if you look at the two, and I always compare the two. People ask me, what's the difference between San Francisco and Houston? What we say. What do we say? We say, San Francisco, beautiful city, not as beautiful people. Houston, beautiful people, ugly city.
The weather too, man. The weather's night.
Yeah, the weather will get you overall. Yeah. But visually, the city, San Francisco is a beautiful city. Houston is just it's a conglomerate of everything.
Yeah,
a hodgepodge of everything. So
So if somebody calls you, like an LA job or an LA company contractor calls you and looking for somebody, is that something you guys are not interested in serving, can't service, or is there a reason why
Oh no, yeah, no. We can do. Our primary market is when it comes to California is the Bay Area, but we have 2 recruiters in Los Angeles, and so we service
cool.
LA as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, not to the same degree. And so what it's based upon, Mike, is the infrastructure. So we don't want to be in a position where someone asks us for, a candidate for New York, and we don't have the network, we don't have the track record, we don't understand, what the building,
what the needs are,
is, what the
needs
are, just understanding how things are built in that location. You have to have all of that knowledge to be able to deliver the product the right way. And so, if you're going to enter into a new market, make sure you do your research, understand what it is, all about how it is to build, types of candidates you might get for the different locations. And so all of that is very important to understand all of that. I might have mentioned too that our approach as well to all of this is coming from, I think I mentioned up front, consulting. We consider ourselves not just recruiters, but consultants, and we operate, our fee structure, how we break that down. So a lot of I don't know if you know about this in recruiting, but it usually breaks down into two areas in terms of billing and business model. One is retained and the other is contingency. Contingency being where, you place the candidate after 30 days or whatever you negotiate with the client, then you're compensated based on the base salary. So we don't do that. We do the retained model, and we just feel that it's just a better service professionally to the client, not just not for us, but for the client. It serves their needs better when they get involved in the retained model, which means investing. And when I say investing, not paying, but investing up front for us to engage in the search for you. And it's usually a third of the overall fee. It makes for a much more professional environment. We come in as the designated recruiting agency and are able to give them priority when they work with us on that basis. They get the white glove treatment and all of that. So it's just the best way to go. And we find that as we navigate through this complex road of maze of candidates, we're able to have the commitment of our recruiters on that basis. And so it just really works well for both of us. So it's a little bit about our business model.
Yeah. So from the consulting side, what kind of things are you guys implementing or doing, or how does that process kind of look when you guys start working with a new client?
Yeah. Well, we believe that if we're going to do this job, the right way and really give it everything that it requires, you have to be more than a recruiter. You have to be more than someone who just recruits a candidate and places them on the job. I feel like anyone can really do, not anyone, but that is the easy part. But think about everything else. The person is now on the job. There's now retention involved. Does the person stay on the job? Is it so the company needs to have that infrastructure that allows a person to grow, to stay on the job, to find fulfillment with that company and in that role. And so we help with that. What do you have in place? Everyone wants the best candidates. They all say that to us, bring us the best. But sometimes we ask them, well, what do you have to support that? Do you have growth? Do you have bonus programs? Do you have extracurricular activities? Do you have learning? Do you have university? Do you have all of that? Do you have a diversity program? All of these things are important in terms of the overall culture of a company. And so we will help with getting them on board with that, right? And getting the buy-in that they need from their managers and their superiors and their officers and the board members and so forth. It's a collective. And so when we work with you, we partner with you, not just on the recruiting, we partner with you in terms of best practice, hiring best practices as well. A lot of the companies we work with do not have a designated hiring process, right? It's kind of like a free-for-all. It's a free-for-all. We hire when we have the need. We teach them that the whole thing is proactive, right? You need to be thinking about what's coming up down the pipe. Who are we going to be needing? What are we going to be needing? What projects are we going to be bidding on? Are we going to be able to support that project effectively with what we have right now? Who should we be looking at targeting in terms of internal staff? And so that's all projection. So, but you need to have that overall planning in place in order to do that. So you're not reacting to the environment. If someone gets laid off or someone's fired or someone quits, someone moves on to another position, have you done anything to protect yourself from a hole, right?
Yeah.
That will leave. And so that's all about building from the inside. So we help them build from the inside out and provide an outside service that we are to them as well. And it comes together, I think, very well. So the other thing too, I might have mentioned too, is outplacement as well. We do a lot of outplacement. Now we're doing a lot more because of the way the conditions are right now. People leaving jobs and moving into another position, we help with their outplacement as well. So, yeah.
So how do you enter into these business relationships? Are you starting as a consultant and then bringing the recruiting services? Does it vary? What is the structure of your relationship with these?
Yeah, I like that question. It's a good one. I like good questions, Brian. That's a good one. That was a really good one.
I ask less than Mike, but
Mike's got some fantastic.
So I got to come up with some doozies.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Well, we are recruiters. We're trained recruiters. My staff, we're about 9 people at the company now, and what we know is recruiting. We also know the other things I just mentioned. So we come in, we approach it from helping you fill your open positions, right? That is the introduction.
Yeah.
As we start working with the client and start talking to them a little bit more, we want them to know that this is a partnership. It isn't a one and done. It's really a collaboration and partnership, because we know that if you're going to be successful and happy with the hire, there's a lot of other things that have to be in place as well. Yeah. And that will reflect on us too if they're not. So, we find a good director of healthcare construction, as we're doing right now. It's one of the searches that we're working on right now, and place that person. If the structure of the company, and sometimes it's misleading because you don't know everything up front, and some clients may paint a rosier picture, of their organization, and we find out a little bit later that it's not quite like that. So we ask a lot of questions about the infrastructure. What can the person find, when they work there? What's the 5-year plan for this role, for this position? What happens after 5 years? Can they move into their director? Can they move into like a VP spot? Do you have that infrastructure that's going to allow that? What's involved in doing? What's the track, right, to get there? Right. And so we want to know all of that. And so and sometimes they'll say, yeah, we haven't thought about that. We have thought about that, but we don't have the mechanism to do that. And so we will outline a plan for them to get there. Right. Here's what you need to do for growth. Yeah. And so we're consulting with them along the way. And it's really, I think, the best way to do this, the most effective way. And I think it really helps us stand out a little bit as well, because there's a lot of recruiters in our field. There's a lot of recruiters doing what we're doing. I think we're doing it in a different way, because we have a different philosophy. That is one of approaching it from the standpoint of a partnership. Yeah. You are, we collaborate. We're as good as you are. You're as good as we are together. Right. If we're not in it all together, we're not going to be successful. You're not going to be successful. So let's partner, and let's really and let's talk about everything. So we talk about, our process is pretty, I would say intense, but it's involved, right? You just don't get a candidate or a recruit, and that's the end of it. We'll talk to you about how we're going to do it, what our approach is. We'll ask them how they have engaged in these types of roles and searches before, and talk a little bit about that, get a little bit of history from them. And what we don't do is impose, we have a definite strategy and a method to doing this, but it's always in collaboration with how it works best for the client. Right. And so, some things work, some things don't for different clients. So you really have to kind of figure that out and talk to the client and get there. So that's kind of how we do it. So
on that, are you guys as part of that? Is that buy-in process of the collaboration on the hiring techniques and the benefits and all those other things? Is that kind of a stipulation or requirement for somebody to work with you?
No, it's really not. No.
Okay.
Really, the client, initially the client sees this, I think, as, and I want to make that clear, by the way, that it isn't. They see, when they say, typically they'll come to us and say, oh, we have this open rack, open position. We need a superintendent. We have a new project coming, or we're in a project right now. Someone left. We need to replace the superintendent. It's always from the recruiting standpoint, right? That they come to us to fill a role in position.
Yeah. So if you guys go and say, you ask them all these questions and they say, and you're like, hey, you guys might want to do this. This might help. This could do. And they go, no, Neil, we don't want to do any of that. Just find us a damn superintendent. Like,
yeah. Okay. And that's fine. But we don't push that. We ask questions about that. We want to know, because at the front end too, we want to know what we're working with. And so we will ask questions about the environment. We will ask questions about the company history, the background and things like that. And that just gives us a better idea of who to target.
Right.
Because what you want to know when you do this, the type of work is, so we always say this, we say that a good candidate can work anywhere, right? Technically, from a technical skill standpoint.
Yeah.
Like if you have the technical knowledge as a superintendent, you can do that anywhere.
The job's the same.
But the question is, can you do it in that environment and succeed? Can you be successful in that environment? And that often makes the difference.
Yeah, that's more of a personal aspect.
Where you're working. The people relations and the type of people. So it's a cultural fit as much as a technical fit. And so we want to know more about that as well. And we ask a lot of those types of questions to get an assessment from them and make an assessment of our own as to who might be, the right candidate for that position. Right. It's more than an open position. It's more than a good superintendent, putting that superintendent into that slot of a superintendent role. It's a lot more complex than that. And the companies know that, and we talk about that too. Right. And then we let them know, what we have we have best practices, hiring practices, HR related things as well. We offer interview, like for example, new companies particularly, and not necessarily, but in the main, will not have experience interviewing. So when you interview a candidate, there's certain questions you can ask, certain you shouldn't.
Especially in California. Yep.
Yes, in California. Some are legal, some are not. And so, you really want to give the candidate the best experience. And so, having, a list of questions that are permissible, you need to know that and things like that. And so we ask that of them, and they say, oh yeah, we're fine. Oh yeah, sure, go ahead and do it. And someone will then say, no, how does that work? What questions should we be asking of the candidate? And we'll provide that as well. So, yeah.
Do you offer just the consulting portion, on a retainer basis, even if they don't need any sort of recruiting?
We can. We don't at this point. No, it's always combined with the recruiting because recruiting is foremost.
Right.
But if anyone, wants to tap my brain about consulting and about hiring, I've been doing this for 20 years now. So, and our staff has several years of experience as well. We can provide that to anyone who's interested. Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. Well, any kind of get into the funner stuff, or the more fun stuff, the funner stuff.
Oh, that wasn't fun, Mike? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, are there any big cool projects that you've placed guys at that people would know?
Let me see. Yeah. Chase Center in San Francisco, the new Warriors Stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, you heard of that, right? Yeah. We had superintendents. We have a project manager over at Allegiant, the Raiders Stadium
Vegas,
as well.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm actually there tonight. I'm driving right by it tonight.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
That place is
those are the two. Those are the big ones. Yeah.
Very cool.
But we work on a lot of big, high-rise projects and others in Houston and here, and for some good names as well, like work with Clark Construction, McCarthy. You heard of those guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
Suffolk, one of our clients too. and Millennium's another one to Neapolis, good client of ours. We do multifamily work. So yeah, we work with some of the players. And,
that's awesome. Outside of Miami,
yeah.
Is there anywhere else you guys are looking at to kind of move into in the future?
Well, we are looking at other areas in Texas, Austin and Dallas as well. I think Dallas will be next for us.
A lot of development in North Dallas, like that north suburb area, Dallas, Frisco, Plano, that area.
So where do you live? You said you lived in Texas when you were there?
I lived in a suburb of Fort Worth, just north of Fort Worth. But
Fort Worth. Okay.
My wife has family that lives up in Frisco, and I know that whole area is booming and has been for the past 5 or 8 years. But it's getting pretty big out there.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on. So Austin and Dallas, and I think Miami, and then other areas in Florida we're looking at as well. We're expanding.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention this too. I don't know if I did, but we have now become fully remote as an agency.
Was that forced onto you because of COVID, or was that already in the plans?
Yeah. Well, we had planned. We kind of planned it, and then the
world said, "You better do it now."
And then COVID planned the rest. Yeah. So
I feel like you're not alone there. That happened to quite a few people.
Oh man.
Yeah, and so the thing about this business is we do so much of it anyways. In the best of times, remotely, from home, because it's that type of a business. It's nice to be able to go out and meet clients, obviously, and see their space and have them come see our space too. We like that, obviously, but so much of this is, teleconference, Zoom, phone calls, sending emails, resumes that way. And so not a lot has really changed for us in that regard. That we've had, the office in San Francisco and office in Houston, we have now temporarily, at least we're going to see how this works. We've temporarily closed them.
It's almost,
this makes more business sense.
Yeah, not that this has been a great situation, obviously, but from that aspect, not only has it forced you to become remote and a little bit more efficient that way, but it's almost made it okay. It's forced other people to accept that that's how you do business also. Because if this had been the case and you were just to say, hey, we're going to go remote, and then everybody else not working remote goes, well, why are you doing that? Like, we like that personal touch and feely kind of thing. And now it's like, hey, we're going to go remote, and you go, and everybody else goes, yeah, we are going to go remote. So it's almost made it easier on both sides. And
it really has. It really has. And what's interesting too, Mike, I think the construction industry is also adjusting to that and doing a lot more remote work as well.
Yep.
I mean, out of necessity.
Yep.
Like the walkthroughs that a lot of companies do.
All VR and AR.
And all of that. I mean, now you've got software that's able to do that and track all the change orders and things like that you don't even need to be there on site to do it anymore. And so, so there's so much of that, which is now taken up by technology. And I might add that, so when we prospect for new clients, as we do, all the time, we're much more interested in clients that are technologically savvy and have that software and offer that, because that's what a lot of the candidates are looking for, because they know that's where the future is.
Yeah,
and so construction, I think generally is a little bit slow to.
It definitely lags behind the rest of the.
Lags behind, yeah.
But I think it's moving along pretty quickly, like you were saying. I think it's starting to catch up, and I think that curve is gonna get vertical real quick.
Yeah.
Rather than being kind of a slow
accelerate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's going to make it just a little more, construction is very cool. It's very interesting. It's very exacting. This will make it much more exacting, I think. And I think the rules are changing a little bit as well.
Yeah, and it'll almost make it more attractive to some of that younger generation too, when they know that they can
more attractive
with the tech rather than just pound on a hammer.
One thing we didn't mention is, the scarcity of good candidates in construction. It's been this way forever.
Yep.
In terms of just finding what you need when you need it. You really have to be really good at it to uncover the top candidates quickly. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that goes back to the classroom. And kids not interested in construction the same way as they are in tech. It's not as sexy. It's not as interesting to them. The apprenticeships are not there. So we lost a lot of good people potentially through that. And then the recession as well, 2009. created a gap as well. A lot of people left the industry and never came back to it. So, so there's been, a lot of that going on as well. Recruiting's fun. I love it. There's some great stories behind what we do.
I was going to imagine. I imagine it's different every day. Different companies, different candidates. And
because the science of recruitment is, you think about this way. Your product is people, and so that's what you're moving. That's what you're
inexact
selling.
and
which are inexact, and so crazy things happen from time to time. Think we had a guy, who went out on site to interview, and thought that he would pull out his tobacco chew pack, and just start chewing in the interview. He was like,
Neil, I don't know why I didn't get that job. Can you help me out?
He did. That's what he did. He called us back and said, "Hey." He called us up and said, "I don't know. I don't think they liked me." I said, "Well, what went on?" Well, they saw the pack and they started. I said, "You were chewing tobacco in the interview?" And he said, "Well, that's what we would do on site. So I just wanted to let the guys know that
I was normal.
I'm cool and I'm going to be fine when I get out on site because we always chew on site."
That's funny.
And I said, "Well." I almost said his name right there, but I said, "I'll say Bob." I said, "Bob, well, this was an interview." So, So sometimes you cover all bases. You cover all of the bases. You think that you got, because we do the candidate prep. What to say, what not to say.
That's on the candidate prep checklist now, right?
That's on the candidate check prep now. Did I ask him about tobacco?
Now give me your tobacco before you go to the interview.
Yes. Yeah. Good advice.
That's funny.
Chew before you go in. And then other things crazy too. So we've had, this hasn't happened hardly at all, but it has happened, where candidates have sort of walked off the job, at lunchtime. We had a guy who, and we thought he was really good and he was actually doing okay. And then we just couldn't find him. He just disappeared. No one could find this guy.
Jeez.
Ghosted him.
Literally.
And then he literally just went missing. And so he went to lunch and basically never came back. And then I got a call. Next day from the company say, "Well, we can't find him. What's going on?" Couldn't find him. And finally, I called him a few times. He didn't respond. Then he called me back and he said, "Oh, I took another job."
At lunch.
I took another job. So I dissect. Long story short, I had to go through and dissect the whole thing, what was going on. But that is an important reminder sometimes that when you don't know exactly when you're reaching a candidate if you don't ask.
Yeah. Because
there are different stages of the process, right? You reach someone who's heavily involved in the interview process. They may have multiple opportunities. They chose the one that you presented to them and went with that one, but they never really killed the other ones. You know what I mean? Like the other ones are still out there and we kept them warm. Mm-hmm. So you really want to vet that and say, well, the simple question of, do you have anything else going on we should know about? Remember that question if you interview anyone. Ask them that question. Make sure you do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, is there anything else that we should know about? Sometimes they'll say no, and they do have something else going on, but sometimes it will make them think that, I should probably disclose that, I did get another offer, I chose this one, and I let them know. Did you let them know? No, they're still calling me about the offer. Even though they know they've taken another job, they're still calling me. So, you really want to try to break that as much as you can. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But that is the science of people. They tell you sometimes what they think you want to hear. And so the good recruiters, I think, are able to get behind that more often than not, because this is something that could happen if you think about it more often than it does. Yeah. With people, you wake up in the morning, you just change your mind. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that can happen. That can happen just like that in any job, in any role. You just don't want to do it. It isn't like selling a piece of software. when it's sold or when it's moved from one perception to another, it's done. It's going to stay right there, right?
Yeah. No, it's moving pieces all the time.
Stay where you put it. Yeah, exactly. So,
well, very cool, man. Well, we appreciate your time. We'll let you run here. Before we do, we want to give you an opportunity to let the people know where to find you and your services, how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, you can get a hold of us at our website. It is www.americonstruct.work. Remember that? .work, not .com.
Okay.
So, AmeriConstruct.work.
Awesome.
Perfect.
And all the information is there. I'm on LinkedIn, Neil Lockhart. You can see me. I write, post, inspirational stuff I put out there all the time, so you can see that too. So follow us there too.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Neil. We appreciate your time. Again, we'll hopefully keep in touch here and look forward to catching up with you again in the future.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Not a problem.
Brian.
Thanks, Neil.
Awesome. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Have a safe weekend.
It was a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.